those in the foyer would please come in and sit down and enjoy our prelude music. Thank you very much, Peter. That was Peter Score of the piano for today. Welcome. My name is Jan Vanderhooft, and I am the lay leader for today. As we begin, turn off electronic devices, please. I invite you to enjoy the chapel in the back of the sanctuary, and note joys and concerns in the book there. Soon we will have a new minister who will be able to read some of those joys and concerns and hopefully report on them in some degree starting in September. If you have little ones, we do have a nursery downstairs. We also broadcast the service on closed circuit TV, which is located in the social hall near the nursery if you need to stay downstairs. By the way, that's the camera that goes downstairs. That's the camera that goes to our streaming video if you want to watch the service at another time. After the service, I also invite you downstairs to enjoy hospitality and the opportunity to greet one another. Finally, please note the announcements in your order of service, with the many ways to be engaged in this vibrant community. As an aside, today, after the service, we are going to have a community chat. And this particular community chat will have everybody from the board who can't make it here today, but we'll also answer any questions that you have about what's going on in the church, where we're at this way, and also we want to get your input as to where and what we should be doing. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm Judy Fisher of Virginia. I'm not Judy Muir, and one of the title of today's service is Our Church Democracy, How It Really Works. And this is one of the ways it really works. When one board member can't be here for one reason or another one steps up. So I got a call this morning, and here I am. I'm Lori Quigley, and I'm president of the Board of Trustees. Very happy to be here. Judy Muir really wanted to be here. She apologized about 15 times, but she is not feeling well, and so you'll see her again another day. So I want to extend our words of welcome this morning. Come, whoever you are. You are welcome here. No matter your age, your size, the color of your eyes, your hair, your skin, you are welcome here. No matter whom you love, how you speak, or whatever your abilities, you are welcome here. You are welcome here whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears. You are welcome here. If you come with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands, you are welcome.
So today's service is on the fifth principle. And if you'd like, you can find that right in your order of service if you open it up to what's happening here on this third page. I'm making a little reference to those 7 principles right now. The first of the 7 principles is quite individual. The second through the 5th principles is about how individuals and groups should interact. And it goes from more individual to more group-like, and that's where we are today. The 6th and 7th is for the larger group, the larger community, and finally the whole earth. Today's service is about the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and society at large. As I was thinking a little bit about that, I have 3 ideas that come forth. First off, how were these services in the last 3 weeks made? The answer is dictatorially. Excuse me for not being democratic, but I volunteered to do those 3 services in a row, and in so doing, I chose the songs. I asked people to participate, and about half of them said no, because they either couldn't make it here, or they had other problems, or they felt uncomfortable with the topic, or felt uncomfortable speaking before groups. But half of them said yes, and so far I couldn't have been happier with those who spoke. And also, the people who gave meditations and readings, I typically get those people to volunteer. Well, I volunteer them just the morning of the service. The music people semi-volunteered themselves, and I'm so grateful for all the help that they've given me. Last week, something a little interesting happened for me, and that is about, now when I say last week, I mean a week ago Thursday or so, I get a phone call from Paula Eichert. She says, I'm here in church, and I would like to set up the altar. Do you have a problem with that? No. I was planning on just setting up the altar myself. And so last week, she set up the whole altar. Then she informed me, but I'm not going to be here on the 29th. I said, that's okay, you can just leave it up. No, it doesn't work. So this morning, I thought, I'm just going to put a chalice there. By the way, I'm telling you about the dictatorial way things happen around here. And next thing you know, Cindy, she's speaking a little later on today. Cindy Martin, our church administrator, said, would you like some help putting things on the altar? I said, yeah. The next thing she says is, let's go to the office and see if there's something there. And I found something, and I said, let's use that. Because she's speaking, and That's that little thing with all with the American flag in it, the pens, and all that gets done. The second item that I was wanting to bring forth to you was a little problem we've been having in the church. And I had nothing to do with that or its solution. The problem was, and also relating back to Cindy, her office is no longer air conditioned. The air conditioner broke. And it's an old air conditioner. And in the space that it is, and anyway, one problem after another, and it's been, 3 weeks or so without an air conditioner. But she cried out for help, and of course, 3 people come immediately to mind that helped. One was James, our custodian. And he says, well, I can get some bids to see what's going on. And then Laura Quigley, our president, and Ann, our vice president, Ann Scarborough, they said, yes, let's get it done. Anyway, so there's been bids put, requested, bids put out. By this Tuesday, we'll know something about that. And I want you to know that the air conditioner bid decision is not yours. It's not the board. Because it's just impractical. So maybe it's a little bit of a republic thing, meaning our executive committee, that would be the president, vice president, who I've already named, and our treasurer, who is Paul Carlson, are going to make the decision to get it done. And it'll cost money. And hopefully your pledges will reflect what we need. By the way, the person who laughed most there was Lori, because she really, that was a nervous laugh. She wants to make sure that we make it. And finally, our sign that's out in front. I was intimately involved in that sign. And it still has some completion to be done. But the funny thing is that sign is about 3 to 4 years in the making. And I don't know if you know this, but there were more than one, what do you call that thing? The thing we're doing after church today, the community chat on the subject. And this got changed and that got changed. I took over, and in my dictatorial way, I tried to figure something out, and it didn't work. And people got back to me, and the next thing you know, I'm sending out a listserv thing to everyone. What's your opinion on that? And I got lots of really good feedback. If you decided not to give feedback, then it's your own fault. And sorry, the sign is what it is, because of all the people who helped me. And so in a way, that sign is about as democratic as I know things happen around here. I'm hoping that the speakers today will tell you more about their personal journey with how much is volunteerism around here and how much is in the democratic process. And I very much look forward to find out how things actually work around here. Now, that being said, I have been former president of the board, and like I say, I still don't know. Will you please now open your hymnals to hymn number 1? And please rise in body and for spirit as we sing together, "May nothing evil cross his door."
Never
see Liz in the foyer, and she's hurrying forward now to get the chalice.
Like so many things at once. I've invited Maddie Roberts and Brooklyn Epic to help me light our chalice. Please join us in saying our chalice lighting words. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, for the light of truth, and for the energy of action. Thank you for this. Okay. Actually, I'm going to invite all the young and young at heart to come up front for a moment for all ages. Wesley's ready. So did you guys notice that Jan talked about what the service is about today? Did any of you notice? No?
Any of you notice?
He talked about the air conditioning. What if, okay, so what has been happening upstairs? Well, we've been downstairs having fun this summer. Well, you have all been down there every week. I went on vacation, part of it. Is we've been talking about the 7 principles. Have you ever heard of the 7 principles?
Yeah.
Yeah? Awesome. Do you know what any of them are?
No.
Excellent. Well, you know, if you have any of those old-fashioned Kindles that have wood and pulp in them, no? No? They're called books. No? You don't have any of those? I do have. You do? Excellent. Do you ever use bookmarks? Awesome. I will give you a bookmark. It has the 7 principles on it. On the one side, it has the yes, please, go ahead. You can pass them out. I can give them to anyone who wants one. Oh, they're all over the floor. If anyone else wants one, raise your hand, and I think Wesley will bring one nicely to you. How about that? Okay, not throwing. Okay, no, it's good. See, you never know what's going to happen up here. Controlled chaos. All right, have a seat, Brooklyn. Okay, so number 5. So 1, each person is a worth. Have you heard that one? 2, be kind in all you do. 3, we gather, learn, and grow. 4, and search for what is true. 5, each person has a vote, has a say. Okay, that's the one we're talking about today. All right, actually, I'm going to retrieve the bookmarks. Maddie, please. Excellent. You have 1. That's all you need. Okay, so the 5th one is about having a vote. How would you feel if I declared right now that all of RE was going to be nothing but watching soccer games? Oh. Okay. All right, so we'd have 2 happy ones, 3 happy ones, a couple thumbs down, but I decided, and I'm in charge, right? I have some really sad faces here. No, actually, so we don't actually believe that everybody gets a vote in every single decision, right? So there are some decisions that I get to make because you chose, the congregation chose me to be the DRE through the personnel committee and the board of trustees. There are certain decisions I get to make, and certain decisions that you get to have say in. And luckily for you, I let you have a little bit of say in what we do, right? Every once in a while. But there's never going to be.
Are we actually watching soccer?
We're not actually watching soccer games. So I wanted to share with you a quick story about those 7 principles. How did we get those? How did we get those 7 principles? We have no idea. Exactly. Did our congregation write them? and get all of the congregations in the world to adopt them? All right. I think we might be just about ready to go downstairs. Okay. So someone asked me about all the ribbons I have on my name tag. It's about going to General Assembly, and it's about how our denomination makes decisions as a group. Did you know that our congregation gets to send a delegate for every 50 people, every 50 members that we have, to go to General Assembly to decide what our denomination stands for and what they think is important. And that's how we ended up with the 7 principles way back when. And it's how we make decisions now about the things we stand up for, like immigration justice, or Black Lives Matter, or way back in 1984, they voted to allow marriages between people of the same gender. Right? So these are the kinds of decisions that we make all together. And there's been some big changes lately about who gets to have a vote at GA. So ask me about that, and we might talk about it more another day. For now, I think we need to go downstairs. All right. Walking feet. Please sing us out.
For our meditation, let us take a deep breath in, settle into a comfortable position, and let's center our hearts and minds on this meditation by taking out hum. Let us be at peace with our bodies and our minds. Let us return to ourselves and become holy ourselves. Let us be aware of the source of being, common to us all and to all living things. Evoking the presence of the great compassion, let us fill our hearts with our own compassion toward ourselves and toward all living beings. Let us pray that we ourselves cease to be the cause of suffering to each other. With humility, with awareness of the existence of life and of the sufferings that are going on around us, let us practice the establishment of peace in our hearts and on earth. Thank you so.
Thank you so much, Ian. It is our practice here at South Valley to split our worship service offerings with a charitable organization or program that aligns with our values and principles. For July and August, we will be donating to the Florence Project, a legal service organization that provides free services to detained adults and unaccompanied children facing immigration removal proceedings in Arizona. Since 1989, the Florence Project has addressed this inequity locally and nationally through direct service, partnerships with the community, and their children's program that educates, empowers, and provides legal assistance for more than 500 unaccompanied immigrant children. Will you join me in saying the words printed in the order of service for our offering? We are this church. We are its hands, its heart, its voice. Together we share the wealth of this community and sustain it with our for your gifts.
Please now open your hymnals to responsive reading 660. I'll take the first voice, you take the second voice, and please read responsively. Why should we live in such a hurry and waste of life? I wish to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life. I do not wish to live what is not life. Living is so dear. I wish to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life. If it proves to be mean, then to get the whole and genuine meanness of it and publish its meanness to the world.
Good morning. My name is Laura Renshaw, and it has been my privilege to serve this congregation in a variety of leadership roles over the last decade. When Jan asked me a few weeks ago if I would speak on the topic of the Fifth Unitarian Universalist Principle, I wasn't sure at first what I could say about that. But as I thought about how I got involved here and why I stay involved here, I realized I have plenty to say. I'd like to tell you a little bit about how I became a leader here at South Valley. And if you'll bear with me, I'll also share some thoughts that I've had about my own journey, tying in with our Fifth UU principle, which is in your order of service. I'll read it anyway, though. That we affirm and promote the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. Within the first year or so of finding this place over 19 years ago and becoming regular attendees with my husband, Scott, and little one, Nicholas, he was, I say, if I go this way, because he was just not walking in a carrier this big. I landed my first gig being in charge of something here, the annual church yard sale. I didn't ask to do it. I think I let it slip at an event that I liked shopping secondhand. Perfectly innocent comment, said very casually. Next thing you know, I found out that someone had suggested I would be a great person to chair the yard sale. Or maybe they said I was actually in charge of it. And I thought, well, okay. Could I do this? I still felt like a visitor at that point. Luckily, there was someone else, Anita Albright, who had agreed to help out that year. So the role that I took was actually that of co-chair. And that felt much safer to me and less overwhelming than if I had to do it all by myself. 2 people to share the responsibility, plus a ton of volunteers to help too. So it was a positive experience and I felt pretty good about stepping in and helping out. Only a couple of years later, maybe less, I got really serious about leadership when I applied for the paid staff position of Director of Religious Education for DRE. I have a background in education, but aside from that, it was a real leap into the unknown for me and quite an adventure to experience the joys and challenges of volunteer management and nonprofit work. But I didn't have to do that alone either, because there was this fabulous group of people called the Religious Education Growth and Learning Council, or REGAL Council, who helped with much that needed doing. Everything from making decisions together about the content of the program to finding, supporting, and appreciating the volunteers. They help with everything. Working closely with the minister is another real perk of the DRE role. Most ministers I've known have had such vision and a non-anxious presence. A weekly work meeting is a thing you come out of feeling less stressed than when you went in. A little over 4 years later, when I decided it was time to move on to accomplish some other things personally and professionally, I didn't take any kind of break or sabbatical from being active at church. Instead, I was elected to a 3-year term on the Leadership Succession Committee, now called the Leadership Development Team. That's the group of folks here who make sure we have candidates for all of our elected positions of authority in the church. This may be one of the most structured committees we have, even more so than the board, believe it or not. There are 3 leadership members on the team, and you're expected to chair the committee in your 3rd year when you've been there the longest and know the most about the work to be done. You have 2 years to get ready to lead it, and you know what's coming. By the time it's your turn, you realize, yeah, it's pretty doable. Also, mathematically, the work of this committee breaks down in a satisfying way. The 3 leadership team members find candidates to be elected to 3 types of roles: the Board of Trustees, the Endowment Committee, and the Leadership Succession Committee itself. Often there are 3 spots to fill on the board as well. Like the other places where I had served at South Valley, I found that the work of the leadership team was meaningful and satisfying, largely due to the support of those I was working with. When my term on the leadership team was over, I was elected to serve a 2-year term on the Board of Trustees. Scott had just completed a full 3-year term, and 2 of those years he served as president. He had faced some hard things in his time on the board. We had to part ways with the settled minister, and there were a lot of strong opinions in the congregation about that. And yet he realized he got a lot out of the experience and encouraged me to serve a term as well. There's a lot I could say about the 2 years I spent on the board serving as president for both of those years. Probably enough for another sermon entirely. Jan, you didn't hear that. We faced some really hard things together. I think almost every board does. I'd like to see a show of hands. How many people have served on the board here? Have you all faced some hard things? Okay, I thought so. In my time, we battled with Cottonwood Heights over the taxation of the piece of property closest to Highland Avenue. We had some work to do to get our financial house in order as an organization as well. We thought our focus would be spent on finances, but we soon realized we had some even bigger challenges to face with one of our staff members. Through every challenge we faced and every issue we worked through, each and every board member really showed up, did the work, and supported one another. Once, when we had a rather time-sensitive crisis situation on our hands, we put out the call and were able to hold an emergency board meeting where every member showed up with less than 24 hours notice. Now that's support. Since leaving the board, I've been part of creating change in some other areas at South Valley. I worked with another member, George Melling, to draft a bylaw change to establish term limits for endowment members and get those in sync with the term limits that already existed for board members. I spent close to a year on the hospitality committee, which works in teams of 3 or 4 on any given Sunday, to serve and clean up our coffee hour treats. I've worked with Susan as part of the Happenings Hub team. I co-chaired the stewardship committee with Scott, where we worked closely with the committee on ministry. Currently, Scott and I are focusing on membership. We make a good team, I think. And it's important for us to give back to this place that gives a lot to us in return for our efforts. As I thought over all these responsibilities I've had at South Valley over the years, I realized that in every role, I've never had to go it alone. We're all about shared ministry here. And that's pretty similar to democracy, isn't it? Democracy is government by the people. And shared ministry lives out the affirmation that all people are called to ministry, and that a church isn't just about the minister. This is a place not to stay on the fringes, but to get involved. Scott and I agree that the more we put into South Valley, the more we get out of it. Putting our time, talent, and treasures to work here is something that feels good to us. I like the definition of shared ministry that I found on the website of the UU congregation in Hillsboro, Oregon. As members of a faith community, we are invited to serve together in a spirit of mutuality as partners. Working cooperatively, we strive to discover, develop, utilize, and support the gifts of each person, and as responsible stewards, to participate in the ongoing creative and restoring activity in our communities and the world. Supporting the gifts of each person is something I think we're pretty good at here. Everyone has a chance to serve in any area where they have an interest. We work hard to ensure that everyone has a voice in how we do things. In our religious exploration classes, this means creating classroom covenants together at the beginning of every year. In our board retreats, we learn about the personality types of each board member and how that might affect the group dynamic. In my time on the board, we even went one step further to stay tuned in to how everyone was feeling during our meetings, giving each member a set of stoplight cards. We started out as green, but if the meeting got off track in terms of the topic, the level of respect, or someone feeling not heard, they could switch to a yellow or red card as a nonverbal way to show that we needed to slow down or stop and refocus. Listening to one another, supporting one another, and making sure everyone has a voice. These are not things we do once a year at our annual meeting where all members get the chance to vote. These practices are ingrained in all that we do in our various shared ministries that run this beloved community called South Valley throughout the whole year. I'll end with one last quote from the UU Church of Hillsboro, answering the question, what is membership? Membership in a UU church means you're not just a consumer or passenger. You're part of the operations crew of this self-governing nonprofit body, and you can be part of its leadership too, whenever you're ready. Even if, like me, you've never been a leader before walking through these doors. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Oh, okay. Stretch out. Not nervous. Don't worry about it. Morning. Oh, I got surprised with that one. Try again. Good morning. My name is Cody Pace. I am a recently retired member of the board, and I was your treasurer for 2 years. I say that in the hopes that you will hear my words with the weight that they should carry, which is about the time where my kids tune me out as well. So, for those of you that are sleeping at this point, sorry. Jan asked me specifically to tell you kind of how it really is here at the church, since I was on the board for 3 years. So that I can best tailor my message. How many of you have ever experienced what they call frustration? Everybody got a hand up? Okay. The South Valley democracy cycle really starts with frustration. You're going to notice something that is not up to your standards. Anybody with me so far? Okay. And then you're going to stew about it. And that sometimes can last for years. The paint on not this wall, but the wall behind there, just the very tip top, was not painted for years. I've been the only one that noticed. Now you're all looking that it's been painted, so don't worry about it. Oh, now I'm on to other things. So, unfortunately, most of your frustrations are going to end up perishing there, right? You get a frustration, you stew about it, and then what happens? Something else frustrates you more, right? It's like the old adage, oh, does that hurt? Well, come here, I'll bop you somewhere else and that'll hurt, and it'll take away the pain from over there. So you find a new frustration. All right. so frustration. How many of you have let your issue die there? Sorry, I was going to raise your hands again. So go back to the frustration part. It was better when I wrote it down initially. All right, so raise your hand if you've been frustrated. Okay, now let's keep it up this time if you've let your frustration die without doing anything else. Yeah, me too. Okay. All right, so if you're still playing the game of South Valley democracy, right, let's say you do keep your frustration alive, you're going to advance to the vocalization stage, right? So we've had frustration, and now you're going to start complaining, right? Your frustration has bubbled up into complaints and grumbling. You're going to tend to herd with others that validate the fact that you should be frustrated with that. How many of you are going to let your frustration dwindle at that point, right? You are susceptible to the deadly trappings of any rogue board member who might overhear you. So that is a warning for you there during the vocalization stage. All right? You make the wrong comment, wrong ear, and now your next stage is involvement. So they can pitch, hey, we've got a meeting on Tuesday. No big deal. No, you don't need to bring a pen. I'll have everything. Just come along. And then you're on a committee. Or somehow in charge of a committee. Right? I mean, who knows how many committees we have here? Well, budgetary-wise, it's a smaller amount. That's like mid-teens. But there are over 30 different groups that are looking at various things here within the church at any given time. So, if you've fallen into the trap of involvement, that means a committee assignment or potentially 3 years without parole on the board. So how many have made it to this stage and still your frustration doesn't get resolved? Right, because it changes over time, right? So then once you're involved, you have to go through the lovely stages of meetings, planning, Robert's rules. You have to be nice to each other. I know, it's really hard. And then finally, maybe, when no one remembers anymore, you're going to take action, right? And then you're going to make your apologies. It's the next stage, right? Oh, yeah, we finally did that. Oh, I hate it. I'm sorry about that. Well, let's see what we can do next time, right? Sounding familiar? And then you get your moment of zen. You're calmly breathing, and then you notice a squeak, or an area that's not painted, and it becomes your next frustration. And guess what? It's a circle. Ultimately, the way that things move around here, right? Keep in mind, we've got 155 members, not all of which are active at any given time. We're a big family. We'd be obnoxiously big if we really all had to live together. But really, it's through the involvement and taking action within the system that we have agreed to, right? That's how we keep trust. We have basic rules that we follow. So if I see a facilities issue, we know who to direct that through to make sure that's within the bigger scope of what South Valley really wants for our future, right? But it's really through kind of getting frustrated enough to get involved and take action that our democracy around here works, right? Chairs. These were not the chairs that I started with 5 years ago, right? You'll see those downstairs. We upgraded. And that was someone feeling pretty frustrated, right? So we took that up as an issue. The carpet, same kind of item, right? First thing I got frustrated about was the parking lot. And we did pave raves. Anybody remember the pave raves? I think we raised about $50 total. But that wasn't wasn't the point. Well, it kind of was the point. But that wasn't the point. We got enough energy going that I got off my butt and made a lot of phone calls and finally found someone willing to come out and get us through, until we could actually get it taken care of. That's really kind of democracy. Democracy means you have the right to have a voice, but it says nothing about using it. This country, granted we're a democratic republic, right? But most of our citizenry, most of our individuals don't express their opinions. And then there's a certain segment that just they're not really educated, they're not involved. But they're gonna express their opinion still. And really those that are involved on the inside and take their passions and frustrations that trigger all of us to the point where they do something about it, that's where we make the fundamental change. And it's the same thing here. Right over the next 20 years, you think about the decisions that we're going to have to make as a congregation. Somebody has to be brave enough to say, this is what I think we should do. So the rest of us can go, no, not that, how about this? And eventually we'll get there, right? All of the signs. Right? But somebody has to lead those charges for us. That's what our democracy is calling for. All of us need to find a frustration, find a cause, and step forward and take action within the framework that we've agreed to. So, anyway, thank you. It was a pleasure serving you on the board and as treasurer. Have a wonderful day.
Good morning. I'm Cindy Martin. We've talked about me a little bit, Jan, already. The Office Administrator. And Jan came into my office one day and he says, I want you to just get up there and tell everybody how it really works. And we both agreed. Be nice to me. Be nice to me. I can do things. I can, make suggestions, talk to people, write emails, listserv, you name it. I know the skills. But the truth is that it's a lot more involved in that, and I am making a disclaimer this morning. Everything I'm about to say today is my perspective. My viewpoint. And it starts with when I came to South Valley in 2014. The first thing I noticed when I walked through the doors of the lobby is there was a TV monitor just as you came in to the right up above the door. And there was this picture banner going and playing. And it was a story about how we managed to get all of this wonderful solar system that has enriched our church, our world, made things wonderful. And as I looked around and observed, because I'm a big observer of people and what they do, I noticed that this is a passion-driven church. That solar project was massive, and it was Tucker Gurney's baby. Still is. She still checks on it to this day, seeing if everything's appropriate, seeing if we're being billed or not billed, and that is her passion. Next, I personally was drawn to join the prayer shawl ministry. It meets once a month, and we have a great time. We either crochet shawls to give to members and congregants that are in need or need some comforting. There's nothing better than a warm shawl to wrap around and give comfort. And And of course, on occasion, when we're full up with our shawls, we make baby blankets for those joyous occasions. And we reach out to the homeless with hats and scarves. This is a ministry that was instigated by our own Lori Quigley. And that was her passion. I'm going to read a few instances which I'm calling my story about how I've observed the passion that moves this church and the people in it. Another example that happened over and over, and we've all witnessed, is Reverend Patty writing her editorials, fueling her justice passion. She laid down on the steps of the Capitol. She traveled to Standing Rock. She met with Native American elders to begin restitution for the behavior of her ancestors. And what a spark of inspiration. And we can't forget Mary Lou Prince, the music that she brought, the choir, everything that she did to embrace her passion, even bringing other choirs together throughout the valley. And I got the opportunity to watch our own Liz Martin, the Director of Religious Exploration, consciously make a decision right in front of me. It was kind of cool. We were at a staff meeting, and she'd been thinking over and over about this position and how many, many people in the UU community that have had the position give it up after 5 years. It's an old belief about burnout, that you burn out after 5 years. She made the decision to reignite the flame of her passion. And thank heavens, she's still here. I watched Paula Eckbauer begin cleaning, decorating, and caring for our building with amazing energy. No job was too big or too small. Well, like Laura, she's now the facilities chair. I witnessed the gleam in James Carlson's eyes when he was asked to do the remodeling and beautifying of our downstairs restrooms. Not to mention the painting, the beautifying, the constant maintenance of this sacred space. And then as I'm busy doing my work in my, what was air-conditioned office, I noticed on the calendar there's a Buddhist meditation beginning. And that started and continued on Saturdays by our own Bob Spicer, still going, his passion. At Christmas time, I see Janice Reeves busy decorating and creating an atmosphere of holiday fun. And then there's the background of Russ Martin, an invaluable, keeping our computers running, streaming Sunday services, and keeping the email and listserv up to date. And the ever-present Susan Izagari and all of the volunteers who cook, raise funds, and help in so many ways the homeless youth. The passion that drives us. I wish I could list on and on all of the people, projects, and passions that have made this church an alive, growing sanctuary for everyone. The word passion itself comes from the idea of authenticity, feeling like you're honoring yourself in your decisions rather than trying to be satisfying someone else's. This is highly personal, and no one else can tell you what feels authentic to you. Only you can decide that. The amazing part of finding our own passion is that we do end up giving, helping, and serving others without the charged energy of those words. It flows naturally. Whether our passion is big or small, we must first get in touch with that voice inside our head, inside our heart, and listen for guidance, and be aware of what it is that moves us, what we're being drawn to. Our passion could possibly turn into a small group ministry. And I lived up like Laura did, what that means. It's where we share deeply and listen intentionally on a variety of topics without the need to prove a point or give advice. In doing so, we are able to allow ourselves and others to be heard. For me, when I get all fired up, I kind of tend to have tunnel vision. And that's the time I need to write a good plan. I need to see if it makes sense on paper. I need to meditate and contemplate. What is this thing? What is this thing that's pulling me and moving me? At that point, I can engage others and work with someone who knows this ministry, inside and out. Ta-da, board members! And that can save massive amount of times before I create a proposal. And for me, this is where the democracy comes in. Find out what your passion is. Delve into it. Let it guide you. And then make a proposal to the board or to the minister, for they have the big picture. We can't all be loose cannons going out and saying, well, I want to do this and I want to do this. We can come together and work within the framework that we already have. Be open-minded. There may be a better place for your passion or another way to fulfill it. Above all, keep the fire of passion alive. See where it leads you. It just might be fun. And I leave you with the words that may we always, always take the time to listen to that inner nudging, to get that guidance that takes us on the path. You know, it's the same path that led you here. Thank you.
Thank you all. Would you please now open your hymnals to hymn 348. Rise in body or spirit as we sing together, guide my feet. For my closing words, I'd like to point out our chalice up here. How many people know where that chalice came from? A few people do know. And if I'm doing something wrong, hands down. If I say something wrong about it, please tell me. By the way, it came from a tree from our yard out in front. And it became unwieldy and very large. So we cut it down. But a person in the congregation, does anyone remember who that person was? Anyone? Anyway, I'd like to remember that. Someone decided, you know something, we can remember that tree. And so they did a lot of effort to make sure that this chalice was made from a lathe using the trunk of that tree. I just thought that it was just quite fitting for this service today about how things get done. This point, after I say the closing words, then we will dismiss to downstairs, and I hope you have some of the refreshments, that you make sure you discuss things with one another. And if you don't mind, I'd like to have our community chat a little earlier than what is scheduled at 12:30. Let's meet together up here at 12. I got the nod from the president. I want to make sure they don't do everything alone here. And if anybody, I think it'll last long enough that if anybody knows about the community chat and comes at 12:30, we will definitely, at least one of the board will remain here long enough to answer those kind of questions too, those questions from those people. Barbara Queeman made me aware of these words that are found from Robert Mapry Doss. I really like them as closing words. For all who see God, may God go with you. For all who embrace life, may life return your affection. For all who seek a right path, may a way be found, and the courage to take it step by step. Now I'm going to extinguish our chalice, but as we extinguish our chalice, we do not extinguish